So this is a like, what am I reading, or what have I read, or reading updates. I'm outside because it's nice, and it's been fun. Just enjoying the summer, especially the past couple of days. The weather has went from the extreme. It was cool, and then got warm. Like today is very, very warm. So I'm just enjoying the outside, listening to the birds, and yeah. So the reading updates. There have been several books. Well, not several. Four that I'm probably going to talk about, maybe one more, because I listened to an audiobook of a novella. It took me like an hour and a little bit to listen to when I was cleaning, and I was kind of like indecisive. Did I like it or I didn't? I didn't like how it ended because I'm like, it left, and it ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm one that I need to know what happens at the end. But two of the books are Christian fiction. One of the Christian fiction is biblical fiction. Another is a fiction book. I think it's considered thriller. And the last one is a young adult nonfiction book. So, the first one I am going to talk about is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. And OMG, this book was amazing. I give this a 5-star. Because my memory is a little shaky, I am not sure if what books were my favorite that I read so far this year. But this one here tops. This one tops my favorite book. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. This book is biblical fiction, Christian fiction. It retells the story of prophet Hosea. And Hosea in the Bible, he is told by God to marry a prostitute. And yes. And the symbolism of, or the metaphor of the story is, it talks about our relationship with God, because we as people, we make mistakes, we allow our fleshly desires, our wants, our needs to be met through sin. And of course we see this in this story. The main character, her name is Angel. That's her like prostitute name, but she's born, her name is Sarah, and she's born in a rough family. Her mom slept with a married man, and so her dad wants nothing to do with her, with the little girl's existence. And so you see that affects her life choices. Her mom then, because her mom loves the dad so much, regardless if he's married or not, and the dad wants nothing to do with him, and she takes it hard. And her mom falls in the path of prostitution and ends up dying. And so basically it's kind of a tough situation for her as a child. So her mom's friend takes Angel, or Sarah, into custody. Not custody. He takes custody of Sarah, or Angel, and then he sells him to this man, not knowing that this man is basically I guess you're gonna call it a pimp, and he loves underage girls, and so he abuses her. And so then Angel, as she gets older, she leaves that place, and she finds herself going to California, where she has nothing else to do but go into prostitution. She's a very beautiful girl, so she finds herself into prostitution. And one day, she meets Michael Hosea, and Michael Hosea is told by God to marry Angel. He is going to marry her. And he tries his hardest to remove her from this brothel. And he does, but because, like us as Christians, we have this battle of flesh and spirit, so she decides to leave him, even though he's taking good care of her and he's doing his best and he loves her despite of who she is. She still keeps going back to what she knows because she thinks that she is not worthy of being with this man. And I was talking to my daughter that this story like hits because the place where she was in the brothel was called Paradise, which was Pairadice, basically like a pair of dice. And I was like, oh my gosh, it is not paradise like Paradise. It's a false paradise. It's a false like happy place. And I think we as people, as Christians, that I got from this book is that we try to find happiness in things that are like temporary happiness or a fake happiness, but when you actually get down to it, you're miserable. Like this girl, despite her being loved by people, and it wasn't real love, it was lust. Despite, even though she got money, she didn't get all her money. So despite what people thought was a happy place where they can get all their needs met and they're happy, they drink, they eat well, they gamble, it was just a fake place, a fake happiness. And only true happiness comes from God. And I loved this story, and I saw the movie and I was floored. So that is Redeeming Love. This was a great book if you love a good story, and this is romance, and I'm going to say it hits hard. It talks about prostitution, it talks about sexual abuse, it talks about child abuse and things like that. It hits hard, but her writing is wonderful. Her books are very long, but the story is beautiful. Very, 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 very good. Written well, and knowing that despite all we do, and even though we seem like we're not worthy of love, there's someone, God, who loves us and will pursue us no matter what. So that is Redeeming Love. I had to change locations because my laptop was not charging and the battery was going to run out. So yes, we looked at Redeeming Love. The next book I read that was Christian fiction was also by Francine Rivers, and it is Her Mother's Hope. And this is a duology. I am reading the second book. This is basically like a generation story. If you love a good generational story, this is great. And even though the Redeeming Love, it was biblical, so there was Christian elements to it, this one, you can see the Christian elements in it, due to like the characters read the Bible, the characters went to church. I'm not sure if there was many scriptural like references, but this actually read just like a regular fiction story. So if you're like, I'm not really a Christian, or I don't want all of the biblical things in it, if you're not a Christian, I think you will still enjoy this story. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like it did slow up a little bit at parts, but I still enjoyed it, and I'm reading the second one. It follows Marta's family. So the main character, Marta, it follows her as a child, and then her growing up, getting married, and then having children, and then her children having children. And I believe the next book I'm reading is basically her great grandchildren, I believe, story, because it follows her daughter and then her daughter's daughter and then the daughter's daughter. So yes, but Marta grows up in a Christian family. Her dad goes to church, her mom goes to church. However, her dad was rude. I stopped several times at the beginning reading the story because her dad was making me angry. Like, he's one of those people, like, I guess you can call those hypocrites that go to church, that like will go up there and pray the hardest and try and do all of the things in the church, but then go home and be a whole different person. That's him. So he had issues with alcohol. So he would mistreat his wife, mistreat his children, especially his daughter, Marta, because he had high hopes that his son was going to do well in school, go to college, and make money to bring home to him. His daughter Marta will be basically his house slave. And then his daughter Elise will get married to a rich man and she'll be taken care of because Elise is beautiful. Well, all of those things that he hoped for not quite happened how he wanted it. But you see how Marta, her issues with her dad made her mistrust God, because she took in the idea of, if God is his heavenly father, like if he's his father, I don't want to be a part of it because the dad that I have is not the best. Which is kind of what some people may feel like. There are some people who have horrible fathers, and so they take that idea and use it like as God. So you see that in the story, and you also see the generational curses and bondage that each of these women have. Like, her mom was very submissive, which is not a bad thing at all. And her mom had faith and hope that even though the dad is a jerk, she still loved him because she knew he was a person. And so Marta, then growing up, she's like, no, I am not going to be one of those women who's going to let a man run over me, let a man dominate me. So she goes into this adulthood with that mind state, and she does well as an adult till she gets married. And because she gets married, she has that bondage, that baggage from her parents that she goes into her marriage. And of course she has children, and so because she wants her daughters to be strong and things like that, she takes her baggage from her childhood and, you know, brings it to her marriage and her parenting. And so when her kids grow up, some of them follow suit. Most of them move away. Like, they do well for themselves. But her one daughter, Hildemara, which the story follows, she's grown up as a child, and she has the baggage from her mom. And so when she grows up, she has issues. And so it's that continual cycle of just generational issues. And I hope in the second book that the generational curses and issues are stopped at one point. But as we see in life, sometimes they don't stop until, you know, decades later. So this is a great story just about how things progress per generation. So yes. But I'm hoping for the best in the next book, that things get turned around for this family. Yes, I enjoyed this one. I guess going with the theme of family issues, this story I read is called Shadows of Pecan Hollow by Caroline Frost. And I believe I gave this book either 4.5 or 5 stars. This book I saw in the book page It is a library, like literary review magazine. And this is regarding basically a dual linear, I think that's how you pronounce it, you say it, basically two timelines, the present and the past. So there is this girl, Kit, and she is a runaway. She was abandoned as a baby and was in the foster care system, and she went through foster care after foster care until she did have a good family, and then of course things happened and she went to another foster home, and then she ran away. And on her runaway she meets this guy Manny, and they become like this Bonnie or Clyde. Now, this girl, when she runs away, she's 13 years old, and Manny is well in his, I believe, his 20s or 30s. And he takes her in as his child or his niece, and when she does come of age, he ends up falling in love with her. And they are known as the Texaco twosome. I don't believe this is an actual, like, story about, like, real people. But I could have, if it isn't written about real people, actual people, it could have been. But so you go through her story of her growing up and robbing and stealing and scamming people with Manny, until she finds herself pregnant and he does not want her to keep the child, and so then she runs away from him while he was trying to rob, I believe, a restaurant. And then he gets arrested. He gets caught and arrested, and she ran away from him because she didn't want to get arrested, and of course she didn't want her child, to go through the foster care system. So she's raising this daughter in Pecan Hollow, which is where her great aunt lives, and her great aunt leaves her this estate, and so she decides to raise her daughter. And because of her life as a foster care child and her rough upbringing, she brings that into her parenting, which her daughter resents her because, you know, her mom has trust issues, her mom has maybe some mental issues as well. Now, Manny gets out of jail, and he is, quote, quote, found God, and he comes back to find Kit and her child. Well, he didn't know that she had a child until he sees her one day, and he does some crazy stuff. So it's basically another story of how your past catches up to you. And yes, so this was a great story. There is sexual assaults. There is child neglect, things like that. So if that's a trigger, just letting you know. The last book I'm going to talk about, as my children watch me make this video, which I don't care, is The Port Chicago 50 by Stephen Sheinkin. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It is about the Port Chicago men during World War II. And I read this because back in, we're still in June, duh. Back at the beginning of the month was World War II weekend in my city, and I did not go, which I was sad about. So I decided to read about World War II. I got this book, I believe, from Goodwill or some thrift store, or probably the library, I don't know. But I never knew about the Port Chicago 50. These were black men who signed up for the Navy, but they did not fight because there was a bomb that happened in California that bombed the boat that they were on. These men wanted to fight, but because they were black, and at that time, you know, people did not want that. Didn't think that they were adequate, you know what I mean. I can't say this word, adequate enough to fight. So they kept them to take care of the artillery and the bombs and things like that, the ammunition. So they were not well trained. They were not taken care of. They were mistreated, abused. And so when the ship that they were on was bombed, they went to another ship and they were told to go back to doing their original job. And 50 men said they're not going because we don't want to die. We don't want to have to do a job that we're not trained for. And there was actually court proceedings about this. And it took years for these men, despite them dying in jail and stuff, to actually be found not guilty of court-martialed, you know. So it goes through that history. There is wonderful pictures. I am a World War II, World War II is that decade between the 20s to the early 50s is my decade. So anything that happens, World War I, World War II, the Depression, the Harlem Renaissance, all of that history is my thing. I swear I was probably born in that era. This is in my past life somewhere. But the pictures, the accounts are amazing. And the one thing that kept going on was that even though the federal government, the president at that time, all of those people knew that these black men were being discriminated against, they were being abused, they were being mistreated. They did not want to do anything because they were so fixated on winning the war. And that made me sad, because blood is blood. You know, if it's white men fighting and dying or black men fighting or dying, blood is blood. And the people, the Port Chicago 50 were saying, who is the real enemy? Is it the enemy that we're fighting against, or is it the enemy of our own country? And I mean, even now to this day, we're still having those same questions regarding race. And sometimes you have to read history so that you don't repeat it. So this was a great book that I read. And I actually want to read more about these men. And I actually want to read more about other important events that happened. Like this was a highly publicized case in the black community, and I didn't know, and many people didn't know because it wasn't really publicized everywhere because of the war going on. So I want to read some more about these men and also learn some more about some more World War II history. I do have one book that I did listen to on Hoopla, as I'm trying to find it on my Kindle. It is a novella or a short story. It is called The Journey by Joy Ohagwu. I think that's how you pronounce your name. So I am on her review team for her children's book, and I did see it on Hoopla. I think it's either Hoopla or Overdrive. One of them. I don't know. Something. I saw an audiobook and I was like, how did that? But I think it has already been published and released. But if you can see, that is a cover. Sorry if it's a little dim. But that is the cover, The Journey, and it is the prequel of another book, which I did find the other book. It was a short story. Like I said, it took me like an hour and something to listen to. I actually did download it because she has several in her emails for her review team. She has several opportunities to download free books. So I did download it, but I didn't get a chance, to read it. So I listened to it while I was cleaning. I will say I gave it 3 stars. One, because I understand, this is my thing. I understand novella and short stories. Like you have to, make sure you keep it short and sweet, but give all the information and keep your audience, active and listening and attentive. But I really felt like I wanted more from the short story. I'm not sure if it was the narrator of the story. So I'm going to read it, read it just with my eyes and not listen to it and see if I change. But I didn't hate the story, but I felt like I didn't overly love it. I did request the audio of the first book in that series. So I'm going to listen to that. So hopefully if I listen to the story, it was good. It talks about a gentleman. Jason, he's married to his wonderful wife. His wonderful wife, who's money hungry, and yes, I'm trying to not be mean about this character, but she was not such a nice character. She's very money hungry, but when you find out her family had money, and the only reason why Jason married his wife was to keep his family happy, money-wise. So Jason finds out that his inheritance from his family was taken, and his accountant is found dead. So he's like wanting to know where the money is, what's going on, and he's trying to ask questions no one knows. So then his wife starts to act really, really shaky and shady. So he's like, I don't trust nobody, which I don't blame. My money, it was a lot of money, it was stolen, went missing, and nobody don't know. Yeah, everybody's suspect to me. So he then, part of his office in his house catches on fire, where he has all of his documents, as well as the brakes in his car are tampered with. So now he's on a mission to figure out who is trying to either kill him or sabotage him or whatever. And so he goes through that, and at the end, we don't know if we don't find out what happened to the money. And then there is a second part of the story. We meet Asia. She is a detective, and she is looking for missing girls. And so the end of the story is she goes to Mexico to find these missing girls. And that's it. So you're like, what happened to the money? What happened to Asia and these missing girls? And Jason's wife, his family is into some crazy stuff. So it's like all these things are happening, and then the short story ends. And I get it; it's a prequel. It's to read before you read like the main story. But it was like, oh my gosh! Now I have to read the main story to get all my questions answered. And I did. Like when I was listening to it, I was like, what? Are you crazy? No, like, yes, and my kids are like, what the heck is going on? I was like, because the short story didn't answer my questions of the story I was listening to. So I guess you can say it was a good story because it caught my attention. I wanted to get some answers answered, but I'm like, daggone it, I gotta read the next book. So I am going to either read it or listen to it. And yeah, so that's what I have been reading. Like I said, I have been enjoying The Outside. I have been enjoying all of the things that's happening. And yes, so I hope to update you guys soon with the next couple books I've been reading and listening to. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you. And yeah, if you find any time during the day, I hope you pick up a book and read. And I will see you on the next video. All right, bye.